trying to read Periscope at the same time. Welcome everybody to Let's Talk Racing. You got Brian Tidball and myself here tonight, minus big old badass beard I used to have. Alright, let me see if I can get the Periscope stuff back on here. Brian Tidball, introduce yourself.
Brian Tidball, I've been with, boy, that almost looks like Zach Elliott in that picture. At any rate, been with Virginia Motor Speedway, actually since it was before it was Virginia Motor Speedway, do public relations, and pretty much whatever it takes to get the job done. We got our upcoming 2016 schedule out online at the website as well as our Facebook pages. We are open the season on April the 9th with the Ultimate Series coming in for the Aaron's King of the Commonwealth, $20,000 to win for the super late models.
Cool.
And yeah, a little bit of pocket change. And it's also, like last year, it's on an off week of the Lucas Oil Series, which last year, 5 of their drivers came in and ran that event, including Earl Pearson Jr., Jonathan Davenport, last year's Lucas Oil champion, as well as Scott Bloomquist and both of the Clint Boyer-owned cars, which were driven last year by Don O'Neill and Steve Francis, but the second car this year will be driven by former World of Outlaw late model champion Darrell Lanigan. And there's a good chance those guys will show up because that's good money and the kind of purses they like to run for. And this year our featured division will be the Victory Lap Pro late models. We will be running under the fast track sanction for those. Those guys will be running each week a 25 lap feature, paying $1,000 to win.
What did you catch the question up here?
No, I didn't see it.
You said something apparently for Bloomquist. They wanted to know what weekend that was.
April the 9th, if, you know, like I say, last year we didn't know Scott was coming until 3 days prior. I just see the screen up there. I don't see a question going
Well, it's
across.
already gone. The question
But that's Saturday, April the 9th. That's our opening night. And like I said, Lucas Oil Series is off that weekend, so there's a good chance quite a few of their drivers will come in and run that event with us. Keep a watch on our Facebook page, as well as these drivers' individual websites. Because a lot of times, like on Earl coming up last year, posted on their Facebook page 2 days prior to the show. 2 days prior to the show. And you say the questions will occasionally pop up there on that screen.
Yep.
I just hope I can read them.
What's dirt racing? All right, Lori.
Yeah, dirt. What is dirt racing? Let's put it this way: asphalt's for getting there. Dirt is for racing.
See the left side.
Yeah, I see that. What is dirt racing? Dirt racing is great. You'll see more side-by-side, 2 and 3 wide racing, or like in the case of the Fast Track World Championship last year, 4 and 5 wide racing than you'll see on asphalt in a year or 2 years.
She didn't like your comment. No way. Oh well, what do you expect, Lori? He's a dirt guy.
I grew up going asphalt and dirt, including when Richmond was dirt. And seen a lot, spent a lot of time at Langley, South Boston, Southside Speedway, and Old Dominion, the asphalt tracks in the region. But to be quite honest, the asphalt cars are so ruled to death these days. Unless you move somebody or somebody makes a mistake, you do not see the side-by-side racing.
They don't know if it's every year.
It's what every year, or a big event, or dirt racing.
Dirt racing's all the time.
Dirt racing's great. You really need to look at some of the NASCAR people that are involved in dirt racing. Tony Stewart owns Eldora. Him, Kenny Wallace, and Kenny Schrader are involved in Macon, Illinois. Stewart, Schrader, and Dale Jr. own Paducah, Kentucky. Schrader owns Peebly, Missouri. And then you've got Bobby Labonte, who's Longhorn Chassis Company. Last year was probably one of the top dirt late model chassis, and between Davenport and he won the Lucas Oil Series. Casey Roberts won the Ultimate Super Late Model Series, and in fact our track, 3-time champion Justin Williams was on Longhorn chassis. You got Clint Boyer owning teams. You got Mark Martin involved with out of Batesville, Arkansas, Jared Landis, who runs out of Scott Bloomquist's shop. What was that? I couldn't even read it.
Asphalt lines, you run a single file line and disqualify the winner.
Must be talking about
Snowball.
Snowball Derby.
Yeah.
Speaking of races, I would like to wish condolences going out really in a way to Lynn Phillips and people at Talladega Short Track. They recently had a fire down there this week. It destroyed the concession stand, press box, and media center. And I would really, really like to hope they can get that settled, because their ice bowl should be coming up later in January. The biggest thing that you'll hear on an asphalt announcer make a comment, and a dirt announcer ever makes it, somebody will shoot at them. You do not want to hear an announcer say, and the field's nose to tail, because that usually means it's a boring race.
And dirt, yeah.
You know, nose to tail is, that's okay. I mean, and I'm not throwing any rocks at NASCAR. I mean, I was involved with the sport in many ways for years, but these days, hold it.
Horrible met Tony at the track. I didn't catch all of it.
All right, well, Tony, I between Eldora and the dirt track in Charlotte at the World of Outlaws sprint car race on World 600 weekend, you'll see Tony there. Tony owns sprint cars for World of Outlaws. He owns USAC midget cars, USAC sprint cars, and Tony is really, really cool. But one thing that comes up, you don't want to hear a dirt announcer say nose to tail means race is normally boring. Side by side racing is what it's all about, and I don't know, the asphalt stuff, the cars are just so equal.
Hello, Norway.
You're not going to see a whole lot side by side racing like you used to. Hello from Norway.
Yep, Norway.
Oh my Lord, Norway is in the country.
Jeez, they be chilling up there.
That
might be the only place that is cold.
Sideways all day. There you go. But you'll be amazed. I mean, on the chassis of a dirt car, 5 shocks and mechanical rear steers, not linkage. It's a reaction between the shocks and the springs. You'll see it on dirt modifieds, dirt late models. They get off the throttle, they hit the throttle, and the rear end assembly actually pivots, and it makes for phenomenal racing. Some of the other things that come up in dirt that you want to see is, do you have...
She was talking about sliding sideways in the snow.
No, man, and I'll tell you what, now there's some people that race, you go up north, they race in the snow.
Kind of like NASCAR goes so fast, especially on the curves. That's why I like NASCAR.
Dirt cars, when you go to the curve, you got more opportunity for passing. Now, probably one of the best tracks on the Cup circuit for that would probably be Atlanta, Homestead. Just do not, I don't know, I get upset when I hear aerodynamics spoken about when you're on a track like Martinsville or Bristol. Short tracks, aerodynamics should not even come into the equation. Go back to when Harry Gant was Mr. September and won all his races in a row, and the whole front end of the car was basically missing at Martinsville when he won. Pushing, shoving, rubbing, that's racing. Just drop kicking somebody, that ain't racing.
Well, I mean, what, like Matt Kenseth and...
Oh, Matt Kenseth, the way I looked at it, that was the most exciting. I'm not much for little spoiled rich kids whose daddy paid the way for them to get where they were. I'd rather see a driver that gets the opportunity on talent. And maybe that's the one thing that's turned a lot of the older fans off against NASCAR, is because you do not see your Friday and Saturday night short track racer with the actual opportunity to get on talent alone, the opportunities to move up the ladder. One of the last ones for that was probably Kyle Larson, who has won in everything he has ever driven. You want to see a great race next month. For a week, you'll have over 300 plus drivers from all over the country from almost every discipline of racing at Tulsa, Oklahoma, running in the Chili Bowl.
Yep,
and
Chili
this
Bowl.
thing only pays $10,000 to win, and you have people from all over the country out there.
Bragging rights. That's what it is.
Oh yeah, it's a great resume thing. Rico Abreu, who won last year, that helped get him into some of his asphalt rides. Tim McCready, when he won it, it got him an opportunity to do some development stuff with Richard Childress. But I mean, that's things, notoriety you get in that winning that race. And Kyle Larson and Sammy Swindell's boy that year, they were racing for the win, and little Swindell won it. That was exciting to watch. I mean, if anybody can give me TV numbers, I'd love to know what the TV numbers were for the Mud Summer Classic at Eldora for the trucks. I'm willing to bet that was one of NASCAR's highest watched races last year as far as fans watching, because that one race.
That's excellent competition.
Oh, well, I mean, and they're not running but 80 miles an hour because the track is prepped to be dry, slick. They're not running all that fast, but they're all over the racetrack, and it makes for good racing.
Brad Keselowski is a guy that earned it in NASCAR.
Yep, Brad Keselowski's one who got an opportunity to move up talent-wise.
Carl Edwards, a business car.
Carl Edwards got an opportunity. He got to try out and made it of himself. Matt Kenseth, when he first come to NASCAR running the Busch Grand National Series, Robbie Reiser had sponsors, but Robbie couldn't get the job done and had enough foresight to get out of the car and call Matt Kenseth, who he raced against in Wisconsin, and gave him an opportunity. But as a whole, you're not seeing guys get the opportunities to move up unless, I mean, you look at all these kids that are in trucks, and a lot of them, what is it this year? The Xfinity Series? I can't keep track of the sponsors. A lot of those guys in those divisions have gotten there because they're bringing sponsor money. Well, here's the favorite one for everybody to hate, Danica Patrick. I don't knock it because it's her sponsors on the hips, and she's bringing it. As long as she's got a sponsored package like she's got, she'll have a ride.
Oh yeah.
And no matter if she can drive, that's irrelevant.
Somebody was wanting to know if they can ask technical questions.
You can ask some. You may want to ask later when Bret Hamilton, dirt modified driver and car builder. Bret also builds asphalt modifieds as well, like runs over at Langley. But go ahead, I'll give it my best shot.
So we'll see if eventually it'll pop up on here.
Oh, my eyesight's going the older I get.
You,
But I mean, I went to my first race in 1961.
You can see it here too.
Okay, well when it comes up we'll take a look. I went to my first race in 1961 at Southside Speedway. And I got to see what is now Cup racing at Southside Speedway. The last race for that there was in 1963. Ned Jarrett won it.
Yeah.
I don't know. And, you know, a lot of people call NASCAR today, and don't shoot me through the video screens and stuff. Nap cars, like, let me watch the first 10 laps, somebody wake me up for the last 10 in case something happens.
My wife says I have it down to a science. So we'll start the race, I'll recline in the recliner, and I wake up with 10 to 20 laps left.
Well, I mean, with the French cautions for debris, as we call them, you know, you got to get some green, white checkers, you're going to have something happen.
Yeah.
And that's, I hate to say it, but the restarts are the most exciting thing for the most part, unless Matt whacks Joey Logano again, and I just know a lot of people. Granted, Joey Logano's had a heck of a year, but I don't know, it's like I told Denny Hamlin when he at Richmond a few years ago, whom I've known since he was a kid running go-karts. I said, when he stuck his head in your car and was shouting unpleasantries, you really should have just knocked the hell out of him.
Somebody want to know if you ever been to Fayetteville or Dublin.
Been to Fayetteville, have not been to Dublin. In fact, last time I went to Fayetteville was a Carolina Clash race. And when I left with 3 laps to go in the Clash race, Jeff Smith had the race in hand. And it was 1:33 a.m. and they still had modifieds and U cars to run. And that, you know, that was a, as we like to call it, a North Carolina 1-day, 2-day show. But no, I've been to Fayetteville a lot. I like that track. I like the people down there. I love going down the county line. I love going down when Steve Stumlin, Tyler Carr, as well as the Upchurch family, they've been great hosts. Clary's, I go down there. I love, you know, J.C. Clary and them, and Marshall Reed have been really good friends, good hosts. I raced there when it was champion.
They said, "Yep, you've been to Fayetteville."
No, Fayetteville can be a long night. I've not been to Dublin since it, you know, I would like to get down there sometime. I hear lately, though, the last couple of years, when we've had off weeks, with the exception of going up the flag or announce at Potomac Speedway, Budds Creek, Maryland, I really haven't gone that many tracks. I did take an opportunity this past summer on a week off to go up for a thing at Eastern Museum of Motor Racing. at Lattimore Fairgrounds and took in Williams Grove on Friday night. Got to see Rico Abreu run 410 sprint car, which is phenomenal. And then go over to Lincoln Speedway in New Oxford, Pennsylvania the next night, which if you got to go to Pennsylvania and you only pick one track, not throwing rocks at anybody, but Lincoln is the place to go for great racing.
We got somebody claiming they think Jimmy Johnson will win his seventh championship.
I think Jimmy Johnson will win his 7th championship before he gets out of racing. I really would like to see Jeff Gordon get one more, and I'm gonna tell you, I was never a big Jeff Gordon fan, but Jimmy Johnson, I don't know. There's like whatever's fastest on the stopwatch, he manages to drive that race car competitively. I mean, he drives, all right, if that's the fastest way to go, I'll figure out how to drive it to be fast. He wants to be fast every week, every race. And I'm sorry, y'all can throw rocks at the guys for cheating. They've got them so much in the box these days, as far as there's no innovation left in the sport. Everything's got to be identical across the board. Them guys really don't have but so much they can work with to try to gain an advantage over somebody. Probably the most exciting thing, I'd hate it as a driver, I would hate it, are the restrictor plate tracks and the road courses, because you actually get to see some better racing. I would hate to think of being a driver in that white knuckle situation for 3 hours, 4 hours at a time, and you can't get away from who you're racing with. But that's a great equalizer. Good feel. All right, let's see.
Red Chip Gordon's fingernail polish at Texas last year.
Oh my God. Well, let me ask that person.
He doesn't have to worry about it this year, though.
Well, I'm just going to ask that person. What about if you know that Logano? I mean, here's the little rich kid who was handed everything coming up, and I don't know. Some of his comments, maybe it's his smirky look. It just makes you want to reach out. I don't have a lot of respect for anybody who's getting ready to do a TV interview with the money that's involved in the sport. And the first thing he does when he gets ready to get the interview is put his sunglasses on. Yeah. I like Carl Edwards, who takes his off. Unless he's standing with sun in his face, Carl will generally take his off, which to me looks more professional.
And that's one of the things.
Money talks, well, let's put it this way. Right. It's called cubic dollars. And unfortunately, that's what it's become. You will no longer see, and an example, Stacy Compton. Stacy Compton went to Martinsville, family-owned car, put a car on a pole. You won't see a local driver form his own team and go out and chase for Rookie of the Year because they can't afford it. It's just, without the money, it's impossible to put a car on a track, and the type of money it takes to do that now, where they're taking a budget of $100,000 to $200,000 per race, it's insane. It's out of control as far as costs are concerned.
But yeah, I mean, all the stuff, even down in late models, it's expensive.
Well, I'll give you an example. You're talking about on late models and stuff. When Ty and Austin Dillon were coming up, and they've been running legend cars, Bandolero cars, Mike Dillon told me down Volusia Speedway a few years back, he said, well, you know, we knew, he said, Richard did the math, and even if they built one in late model stock car, they'd lose money. And Mike went over with Ronnie Hoover and some of the guys from Childress to Volusia, and he saw the dirt modifieds, dirt late models, and he went back to the track and told Richard, he said, you got to go over here with me. I think I found out what the kids need to run. And those kids to this day still have their dirt cars. When they moved up the trucks and then nationwide and stuff, I asked Austin at West Virginia Motor Speedway back in 2010, they had an off week, from the trucks. I said, are you getting rid of your dirt stuff? He said, no, Granddaddy said we have too much fun with it, and it teaches you throttle control, because that is what Xfinity and Cup has become, is momentum. You can't spin the tires. You spin the tires, you've lost. Unreal. But those kids, they worked on their own cars. That was the thing. Dale McDowell's brother Shane was there, maintained everything, and But at the track, they come and it needs that. Shane would tell each one of them boys what they had to do in a race car, and it was them by themselves, in some places maybe one other person, and they're making the changes to the cars themselves. And it's not like they just walked in, put a helmet on, and jumped in the cars and went racing. They had to learn to work on the race cars.
I mean, that's always good. You know, granted, you've got the funds there to back you, but you need to learn it from the ground up so that who knows what's going to happen. I mean,
well, you look at your weekly racing. I had lunch with a buddy of mine who runs asphalt late models, owns about 3 different asphalt cars he releases. And he said, you've got kids that can't tell you anything about the car other than it's loose or it's pushing, but they can't tell anything because they don't work on a race car. 2 of the great, well actually 3 really good driving talents that should be at least an Xfinity series because of talent alone, but don't have that bank book to get them there. It's Corey LaJoy,
yep.
Brandon McReynolds, who's running the West Coast K&N because they put a sponsor package together up there, and Robert Presley's son, Coleman Presley. All 3 of them are damn good drivers who don't have the bank books, you know, to get them to the next step, and all of them are working on race cars with the exception of Brandon. He's running the West Coast and K&N.
Yeah. There's I hate to say tons of good drivers out there, and they'll never make it anywhere because they just don't have the.
But you got more good drivers out there than you've got race cars and opportunities. And when you get somebody in, because the sport is so money driven now, it is more business than it is, you know, a sport. You've got to have the money, and if you can't maintain that income to pay for this, that, and the other, money coming in, you're not going to stay there. You used to be prime examples when Kenny Schrader first started driving for Jimmy Donlevy in 1985. The objective was to get Kenny into races, let him make laps, get accustomed to the cars. You weren't looking for that driver to compete for top 5s till the 3rd year. You wanted the first year just for him to make laps, finish races, and the next year a little bit better. In the 3rd year, you wanted them to start getting competitive. You did not expect rookies to come in and win races. I mean...
But nowadays...
Oh my God, you got multiple rookies winning. First time that happened was in 1981 when Morgan Shepherd and Ronnie Bouchard both won in their rookie season.
Morgan Shepherd.
And...
Austin Thoreau, underrated talent, started out racing at $500 U cars. Shane BKR let him go.
I don't know enough about him. I didn't know who he was. And when you speak of U-cars, on a small track that's okay, but when you start getting on a bigger track, I personally think it was some of the most unsafe cars you can be in. Because you do not have a chassis. The roll cage is welded to a unibody car, not welded to a steel frame under it. And there's no frontal bars in those cars. If they hit the wall hard, impact head on, they're going to have an engine in their driver's compartment. And you know, personally, you know, if you keep them on a small track, that's fine, but you start getting much over 4/10, you really take an opportunity for somebody to get hurt.
Sorry, I'm writing John.
Well, I mean, right now that's a backgate bonanza for promoters. That's one reason you see them so many, because they're not paying much money, if any, and they can be put together inexpensively. But to me, that's a dangerous ride. I had a little. Somebody get killed in Florida year before last in practice, first race in one, and you know, that's just, I don't know, a little crazy to me.
Now, you were just talking about somebody originally asked the question when you started going in and talking about Childress and the Dillon boys. You know what your thoughts were on them. It was just. It was funny that you hit right on it at the same time you were asking.
What I think about Austin and Ty both were great kids. And I say kids, they're young men now. But you're not going to see them. I mean, Childress's cars right now are not as competitive as the Hendrick and the Stewart-Haas cars. But I think, you know, and I'm a firm believer the 3 belonged to Richard Childress's number 4 was Dale Earnhardt's. However, a lot of the older people they're down on Austin because he's running that number, but that was his granddaddy's number before it was Dale's.
Yeah.
Ty, I would like to see I would like to see him win a championship at the level he's in. And I just like to see Austin get consistent top 15s and top 10s, and then it's a matter of how things play out. Pit strat, I mean, when you hear, sad as it is, track position, fuel mileage. I mean, a fuel mileage race used to be once in a blue moon. Prime example, 1985, Bill Elliott dominated everything. And they run in Michigan and the race went almost caution-free. And Darrell Waltrip won the race because he was able to do it with one less pit stop than Bill Elliott. Bill Elliott and them were the fastest thing damn near everywhere they went that year. And the only reason Darrell won the race because Junior Johnson and them were getting better fuel mileage than Elliott. Elliott had to make one more pit stop for fuel. There was no two ways around it.
Those are always interesting to have pop up, fuel mileage races.
Once in a while, but when you hear them save me gas, and I don't know. It's beyond me. I would hate to think that's the only way I'm going to win a race. Yes, you're the first one to the checkered flag, but you got 5 or 6 guys run out of fuel the last lap, and you've been running 3/4 throttle saving fuel. To me, that's not racing. Racing to me are lightweight, high-powered cars, and let's see who can drive. Well, I mean,
balls to the wall.
If they raise the front air dams up and take some spoiler down when the cars slip and slide and give them tires that actually give up, when you got a guy that can not take on tires and he is fast enough to maintain the lead over people who've got 4 tires, something's wrong in that equation. It's so aerodynamically glued to the track.
Well, what's your thoughts on, if NASCAR was to say, okay, let's get rid of all these ground effects, everything?
Oh, you go right back to like 1980. You want to see why you got front air dams and spoilers and stuff. Go back to 1987 Talladega Spring race when Bobby Allison got up the fence and ripped down the catch fence. All of a sudden now that's brought restrictor plates back. Then all of a sudden they put the front air dams on them to help keep them on the ground. But they don't look anything like what you see on the street. And even up through the almost 2000, they still resemble a street car to an extent.
Especially when we went to that freaking, what do they call it when they start?
The COT car call it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I've also heard people call it the POS car.
Crap of tomorrow.
Yeah, POS.
Lori was telling you to take a breath.
Take a shot of Mountain Dew.
Lori, she takes and does some stuff for us down in Florida, do some reporting down there for the Let's Talk Racing show.
Well, let's put it this way. I wish I was going to Florida in February, but I'll be working a trade show in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Good thing is if I'm in Pennsylvania working a trade show, I'm not in Florida spending money going to Volusia County Speedway 3 nights. I'm God's honest truth. And I'm somebody that can be somewhat of a smart ass. And we're riding down International Speedway Boulevard a couple years ago. Pull up the stoplight, this guy goes, "Hey, I got race tickets for sale." I said, "For Volusia County?" "No, for Daytona." And just acting just as dumb as I can be. "Oh, you mean they're having a race over there too?" And I don't know. If NASCAR was doing so wonderful, don't know if you're aware, but when Daytona reopens this year in February, they will have 47,000 less seats than they had before they started this renovation of Daytona Rising. Charlotte took down all those seats and suites that used to be over in turn 2, from the middle of turn 1 and 2 out of turn 2. Richmond last year took down the Henrico Tower, part of the Henrico stands, which is back straightaway, and this year they're removing the rest of the back straightaway stands.
I tell you.
I mean, it's not good when you're taking seats out or covering them up as billboards, which if it was me, I'd rather cover them as billboards
Hang on, Dave.
than to lose the seats. I mean, I don't think it will ever go back to the post Days of Thunder boom that we saw in the mid-90s into the early 2000 period. But I don't know. To me, the racing is not as good, and that's one of the things that hurts the sport.
Yeah. That's why a lot of people still love dirt racing. You don't see any of the dirt racing tracks taking out any seats.
No, and I mean, well, of course you don't see, I mean, one of the big things is The World 100 at Eldora, which is held the same weekend in September, the Cup cars are in Richmond. The first time I went out there, which was about 12 years ago, to see 20,000 plus fans at a dirt track. And this is before Tony bought the track. And then you start looking at a racetrack, and if you can't bring beer in, you can't bring alcohol in because they have a full service bar. I mean, you can get liquor, mixed drinks. I mean, you can rock and roll in that place. It's a lot of fun, and it's a heck of an event. It is like what for dirt, big block modified super dirt car week at Syracuse is like, or the Knoxville Nationals, Knoxville, Iowa for 410 sprint cars, or the type sprint cars that Dave drives and Bret Hamilton drives and builds. The IMCA E-Mods, or whatever you want to call them, Boone Nationals out in Boone, Iowa.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a major event. And that's a phenomenal event when you look at the total car count and the amount of racing they do in that place.
Well, since we're talking about Dave, why don't we at least introduce him? Hey Dave, how you doing tonight?
Wonderful. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good. We get to talk racing for an hour, at least. And it goes on even after that, too. We got Dave Hammond on the line with us. He comes from Iowa. Go ahead and do a quick intro about yourself and a bio, and let everybody know something about you.
Well, I'm Dave Hammond from DeWitt, Iowa. Been involved with dirt racing my entire life. Started with the IMCA type modifieds. Was able to build the engines and chassis that my father used when I was like 12 to 14 years old range, and just been involved with it my entire life. Now I'm 45 years old, building parts for car builders, racers across the country, trying to race when I can the IMCA modifieds around Iowa, and that's basically it. We just try to build a high quality part for the racers to use and go have fun on the weekends.
Hey Dave, you probably know a friend of mine that I got to know when we were doing a dirt radio show for a few years, Bucky Dorn. It's out.
Bucky, I know of him. Yeah, I know of Bucky. I don't know him personally, but he and Chris Marchese, and I know Chris real well. And so.
Yeah, Bucky used to call into our radio show on regular with different updates and things that were going on out in that area. I touched on the Boone Nationals because of the amount of cars that they get in several divisions over the course of that week. I mean, it's just insane what they used to get out there, and like 700 plus cars over, and for like a half dozen different divisions.
Yes.
And that's what, a third of a mile track or 3/8?
I guess you'd call it like a small quarter mile.
Oh my God.
Somewhere in that area. It's pretty tight racing. You get 3-4 wide around there. And so I would, that place is on my schedule to go to next year. In 2016, I want to run a few weekly shows and just see if I have the time to go do Boone. That is on my bucket list. That is a race. Just making the race is so huge, it's unreal.
I know that somebody was telling me they prep the track after every so many laps. I mean, it could be so many heat races, and then all of a sudden they'll come out with the tractors, re-disc it, light water, re-roll it, and go on racing again. And it's a quick turnaround because they use 2 or 3 tractors doing this deal, and it's not like a weekly track where they're sitting there taking 2 or 3 days to get it ready before they start watering it.
What Boone has is that they've got several tractors. They till it up, I think, every 10th race, and I could be wrong. But what they've done is they put a mulch into the dirt that helps hold the water in it, and they can farm the track fairly quick in really a nice racy condition.
I know that I've got a picture at home from one year shot out there. One of the photographers sent me, and they were actually 7 wide in the corners. I mean, they're all the way down, one person, 2 wheels up on the inside berm, and the bottom four are just tight as they can be, and you go all the way to the top edge of the track, there's somebody up that high. Just insane racing.
I haven't raced there personally, but I've been there. I was there last year for the Super Nationals. Great track conditions, nice and smooth, and just the track prep, that is so important. I wish a lot of other racetracks would go there and see how they prep the racetrack to make good racing, to keep the fans packed in them grandstands.
Where have you raced at so far?
Well, I've raced all over the Iowa, Illinois, but then I spent, it was 10 or 12 years down in North Carolina, so I raced all over North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, done some eastern Tennessee, and tell you, I really like racing. Georgia has got to be my favorite state of all the states I've ever raced in.
You like that Georgia clay, do you?
Yes, I do. Nothing better than that red clay down there. It's hard, it's smooth, and it's just really a great racing surface.
I tell you, I've seen some tracks down there. I mean, they've been really good. I was in Screven, Georgia one year, and all week long I'd booked room. My son and I were going down, and at first it was going to be in the 50s during the day, low 40s at night.
Mm-hmm.
By the time we got down there that week, that night it went down to like 16 degrees with a wind chill considerably below it. And they were so worried. I mean, I remember Josh Richards' dad, Mark Richards of Rocket Race Cars, going, they better hurry up and get this thing run in before it freezes. And they were so worried about the racetrack actually freezing. My son and I drove down into Savannah, Georgia to eat and come back, and they were just pulling the second heat race out on the track. I said, man, we got good timing for this deal, and it was some great racing. And the stands were packed despite the cold. I mean, that was amazing racing that night. Tony Stewart won the Sprint Car Series. He owns now All-Star Circuit of Champions Sprint Car event. He won that deal, and the Super Late race was great. But as soon as the sprints were done, I was in the van getting out of there. There was only so much I could take with it being that cold.
What do they do if the track gets too cold and actually things starts freezing up?
Well, they could have you once you got to get the track run in, and even though you're in Georgia, or if you're at East Bay in Tampa, Volusia in Florida, Bubba Raceway Park in Ocala, it's still February when you're down here racing these places. And I have been at Volusia in shirt sleeve weather, and I've been there where you got your Carhartt bibs on and stuff, and you still freezing. It might be Florida, but when the sun goes down, it's still February.
So
Florida is the coldest racing conditions the guys could ever be in, because you get that moisture off the ocean in the air, and it's just bone chilling cold.
Oh, especially at East Bay. I've been there, and I couldn't put enough clothes on. And that's in Tampa. In daytime, it's nice, but like say, the sun goes down, and all of a sudden you get that cold chill coming in off the Gulf Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be very cold. That's like Brunswick, Georgia, down at Golden Isle Speedway. I've been there when it's been bad cold. And it's just, and that's the thing a lot of people don't realize. Dirt racing will get fired up the new year soon. Talladega Short Track in Alabama, the Ice Bowl comes up in January. And then you've got the Lucas Series, World of Outlaws, and all them guys heading south, starting the second weekend in February.
Well, and then you got all the modified racing in Texas and Arizona starting in February too.
Oh yeah, you got all that starts in, I think some of that starts in January even, out that way.
I think so. No.
And because I know a friend of mine, Steve Giggis of Sports Plus Videos out of Pennsylvania, he'll be out shooting the stuff out in the West before he flies back to Pennsylvania and drives to Florida to start shooting down there.
I mean, all the dirt racing they do, it's almost like in the old day for NASCAR, when you had Petty the way he got all of his wins was he was racing almost every other night somewhere.
Back in those days, when you talk about that, the modern era, of course, is 72 to present, but back when they used to make what was called a northern swing, they'd be up hitting Islip, New York, and all these different tracks during the week. And the Sunday race, where they were Saturday and Sunday, they'd be at Trenton, New Jersey to run a 300-miler there. Then they'd head back south, but they'd have 2 or 3 other races during the week and smaller tracks. I mean, you look at, like, the year James Hilton was Rookie of the Year, he finished second in points. I think it was him and one other driver, the only ones that ran the entire circuit.
Now, NASCAR has Richard Petty as being, the big 200 wins. What does the Dirt Series have?
You've got guys that have retired out of dirt late model. Buck Simmons from Georgia, Mike Duvall out of South Carolina. Both of them have over 1,000 wins in their career. Freddie Smith, hundreds of wins. Scott Bloomquist is probably, if he hasn't tripped over 500, but the thing about Scott Bloomquist wins, almost 98% of them are all in hard fart competition, major type events. Not all crown jewels, but major touring series. Hava Tampa, Lucas Oil, World of Outlaws, Extreme Dirt Car Series when it was around. I mean, he is not somebody who's going to run down to the corner track because he can cherry pick a race just to get a win.
Yeah, he's looking for the big money.
He's looking for the money.
Show me the money.
And in big block modifieds, you had guys like Barefoot Bob McCready and stuff like that. And from out west, NASCAR sanctioned, won very many regional, and I think he won a national titles, was Gary Webb. Back in the day.
Webb's from
right out.
Is like 15 miles away from where I live, and he has just picked up a brand new dirt late model to run the IMCA late model series again this year. So he's hoping to run, I think he told me he wants to do Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think it's 3 days a week he's trying to run. So
Gary Webb
cool to watch.
has got a lot of wins, and another one is that also big, Larry Phillips, back when he was running, Terry Phillips' dad. He won a ton of races. But, it's like, used to be at a time, you had tracks running Friday, Saturday, Sunday, some Thursday shows. I know we've got a special weekend coming up at Virginia Motor Speedway in June. And it's a 4-track, 4-night Ultimate Late Model Series sanction. The Colonial Clash, they will open up June the 2nd at Georgetown Speedway in Georgetown, Delaware for a 4,000 to win race. Friday night they come to Potomac Speedway in Budds Creek, Maryland, 5,000 to win. Saturday night, June 4th, there'll be at Virginia Motor Speedway for a $15,000 to win show. And the 4 nights cap off at Winchester, Virginia for a 5,000 to win show. And for those 4 races only, there's a $15,000 for that weekend, a $15,000 point fund, paying $4,000 to the weekend's champion, and 15th place will get $500. So there's somebody's toe fuel for the weekend.
Well, Dave,
very impressive.
Time has been flying by here. Anyway, let me go ahead and let you go ahead and give a shout out to your sponsors, and then we're going to get Bret Hamilton on here next if you want to listen in from online.
All right.
And Bret's an Iowa boy.
Yep, you and Bret, you know Bret.
Actually, it's funny, he's from Iowa, and I had to meet him in North Carolina. And got to race with him a couple times at County Line Speedway over there in Elm City. And then he's been back home 2 years ago and stopped at my shop. So, but just like take this time and thank Landrum Spring. Jeff Fuller there has been awesome to work with. Left-hander chassis.
Stand by, Bret.
Nope. Okay. Really good guy. Do a lot with Scott Kaiser up at Integra. He lets me also on one of their repair centers for the Integra shocks. Just Gosh, drawing a blank here. I hate that. Put me on the spot, but
Hey Brett, we got somebody over here talking about you.
I hope it's good. How you doing, Brett? Not too bad.
Yeah, we got Dave Hammond on the other line. We got Dave Hammond on the other line, just finishing up, getting ready to put you on.
Okay. But just like I said, I've had a lot of company help. I've never really had any money sponsors. Just had a lot of product sponsors over the years, and just big thanks to everybody that's been involved in my career. I mean, it's hard to believe I've been in racing now, driving for around 20 years, and working on the cars, well over 30 years, and it's a pretty awesome ride. Wouldn't trade it for anything. So.
And if I remember correctly, isn't this your anniversary?
Yeah, yesterday I just turned 45.
And your birthday.
Tomorrow's my 11th. Yeah. Tomorrow's my 11th anniversary, and we're down in Gulfport, Mississippi, visiting friends, having major racing withdrawals. I haven't seen a race car now in a week, and it's driving me nuts. But the other problem I'm having is how to get home. It looks like going through Missouri might not be an option now. That flooding. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just saw where I-55, they're going to be closing that interstate down tomorrow, and I don't know if I got to go to Indy to get home, or I don't know. But I really hope that everybody's okay. In Texas. Yeah. Missouri, Illinois, where all this flooding's at. And,
we wish all of that. You were saying I-55. I was just thinking, I hope Kenny Schrader's track ain't underwater.
No, I don't think that could get underwater. I don't think there's any water remotely there. If anything, it probably holds it inside the track. But that just cannot believe all this rain. I think we had 3 inches of rain today down here in Gulfport. So, but anyway,
all right.
I'd like to wish everybody happy holidays, and thank you for having me on the show. And please, if you ever want to call me back, please do so. I appreciate that.
I've got you on my list now, Dave, so you're in trouble. And you have a good holiday too, and give the missus a squeeze too for the anniversary.
I sure will. She puts up with a lot, so.
Oh yeah. Alrighty. All right. You have a good one, and we'll give you another shout back another time then.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye.
Bret Hamilton, Powhatan, Virginia, modified driver, car builder, multiple time champions on asphalt and dirt, and the particular type modifieds that you see race around our region, the ones on asphalt and dirt. I mean, Bret helped bring them into the area back many years ago when somebody was interested in helping getting started something low cost. Bret was a big person to help bring them in as far as building them and getting them started. Won quite a few championships, but I think Bret really got to be happy once we started racing at VMS and he got a chance to actually build a dirt car to go play with instead of running the asphalt. Even though you still build plenty of asphalt cars.
Yeah, we're still doing some asphalt stuff. We just turned out one chassis here about a week and a half ago. I got a couple more to do, and I got a dirt car to do too, and it's probably 50-50 on what I do, asphalt and dirt. But the dirt's more fun to drive on, that's for sure.
That's one of the things I never got a chance to do. I did a lot of asphalt racing, but never ever got a chance to go out and do some dirt racing. The closest I came was when I went up to Knoxville Nationals, and since we were doing some of the media stuff up there, we toyed around with them, putting us in one of the double two-person cars and go out there and see what it felt like.
I'm not too sure I don't want to ride in a two-seater sprint car. I know Dave Blaney's got one he had for his driving school, and I was looking at it at the motorsports show one year, and I looked at Dave. I said, "No." I said, "I don't think if I'm in one of the missiles, I want to be the one that wrecks it. You know, I don't want to be riding when somebody else messes up." It did not my idea of fun. I probably screamed more than Darrell Waltrip did riding in a dirt late model around Eldora with Tony Stewart. And if y'all have never heard that, y'all check out YouTube on YouTube. Pull that video up. You swear it's some girl riding in there with Stewart the way he's screaming. Anyway, Bret, other than building cars, what do you got on your agenda this year? Are you going to be driving much? Or I know last
year I didn't have time to build myself a new car, so a friend of mine over in Beckley, West Virginia, Joe Cox, he had a couple late models he was fooling with and said he didn't have time to run his modified, so he sent it over here and told me to run it like it was my own. So we ran that last year and with my motor in it, but I haven't heard what he wants to do. I think we'll probably end up doing probably the same thing. I know I do have an opportunity to drive a car that I had built a couple years ago down at, I can run it down at VMS, I think pretty much whenever I want to, so we may be running that car at VMS and then running Joe's car some other places, some of the Southeast dirt races, or going over to West Virginia, running some, and I think Hagerstown's got quite a few races on their schedule, and I'd like to go back up there. We went last fall. That's the first time I've been there plenty of times to watch, but I'd never raced there. We were running pretty good and had little motor issues, so didn't finish the race, but I'd like to go back up there. And there's some in Pennsylvania, some tracks I've never been to that I'd like to go to. I like to go around different places.
Well, I mean, all the races you won.
I'm pretty good at tracks that I've never been to before. So.
Well, it's because you got probably where a lot of people, you know yourself, they run certain tracks all the time. They get kind of set in one setup, and that's pretty much where they're going to be, give or take. Where you come into somewhere you've never run before, you have a more open mind about what you think you need versus what they're doing.
Yeah, I would say between the asphalt that I've run on and the dirt tracks that I've run on, it's probably been about 60 different tracks total. So we get around a lot and meet a lot of different people and a lot of good people, and we don't like to get too set in one place all the time.
Well, I mean, you've won how many championships now as far as asphalt and dirt?
I think it's 6 and 6. So,
and go ahead.
We won, in 09 we finished second in the AMRA National Points and won 15 out of 36 features that year. That was probably my best year. We haven't run near that many as per year here lately. We usually run 15, 16, 17 races a year now, but it makes it kind of tough. It gets tougher and tougher to run out of your pocket, and that's pretty much what I've been doing for the last 10 years. So.
You know, the one thing that I admire about something that you do, now, Bret lives in Powhatan, Virginia, which is just a little ways west of Richmond, not very far, just outside. And he'll travel, his annual vacation. A lot of times it's called hook up the trailer, load the race car, and go home to Iowa, and you spend a week in Iowa racing around the tracks at Iowa. Now, tell some of these people what that's like to go out there and what it's like for a one spin rule, and explain what that's like as far as the ability of teaching a new driver how to race.
Yeah, a lot of the tracks out there are, especially the heat races and stuff, they'll allow you one spin. And they hold the yellow flag as long as possible, and if you can get going again before the leaders come around or whatever, they'll let you keep on going and they won't throw the yellow. But if then, in case they have to throw it, anybody that's stopped, they're done for the heat race. They go to the pit. And it seems to keep guys keeping their cars a little better under control, and they're not just stopping the track for no reason. And things seem to go pretty smooth. They can run off 15, 16 heat races in an hour and have all their preliminary races done, so they can roll through them pretty quick.
Well, that's something that when first year you told me about that, you spin, you bring out the yellow, you're done, and which could pretty much put you out for the evening, because all of a sudden not only you're not qualifying and transferring from your heat race, it's putting you at the back of your B main to start at your last chance to get in. So it's a pretty much good opportunity. Unless you really on your game, it can end your evening right then.
Yeah, it could. Sometimes it bites you, and I've been out there before, and I was the new guy, new car, no points, so I had to start in the back of the heats. And if somebody spins in front of you and you can't avoid them, and you hit them and stop, if you can get going quick enough before the yellow comes out, you're good. You can keep on going. But I had been sent to the pits before, and of something that wasn't my own fault, but it doesn't happen very often that way. Usually the ones that get put off the track are the ones that deserve to. And guys, if they spin, they're doing all they can do to get going again as quick as possible, so that they're not sitting still when the yellow comes out.
I can understand that, but I mean, that is something to me that'll, because there's so many times, I mean, you and I have both been to different tracks and seen situations where you've always got one or two that are always, 2 or 3 steps over their head, and it's like, okay, when are you going to park these guys?
Yeah. I've gotten, just last year I was in a heat race and had 3 guys spin out in front of me in the heat race, and I got involved in all 3 times, and I finally just said, screw this, and parked it myself. There's no sense keep holding the show up, so I had parked myself and ended up just starting at the back of the B and getting what we could get. But sometimes you just got to realize that it's not your night. You got to do something different here.
I've known you, Bret, for 30 years now. I was thinking about that earlier today before I called and talked to you earlier. And you might, for people that don't know Bret will come out to Richmond, Virginia from Iowa. And explain how you come out here to get closer to racing as a fabricator. What you did, what you put on the table in order to get out here. The offer you made.
Yeah, I grew up around racing. My dad built some race cars for different people, and when I was a kid, I was cutting tubing and bending tubing and stuff for him. And he worked at the John Deere tractor factory, so it wasn't a full-time thing, But when I got to be 19, 20 years old, I trying to find something in racing. There was really nobody around there that did anything for a living racing, and I tried to come east. Wanted to come east, so I talked to Manuel Zabakis on the phone, and he asked what I could do, and he really didn't know if he'd take a chance on somebody that's 20 years old. And I offered to come out and work for a week for free, and if I could do the job, give me some consideration for it. If not, tell me I couldn't do it, and I would go home, no hard feelings. And he said, well, how far is that? I said, well, it's about 1,100 miles. And he said, well, if you're willing to do that, I'm pretty confident you can do it, and I'll give you the job.
And that's how Bret ended up on the East Coast. And 19...
I left about 3 days. I left about 3 days later, and I've been here since. And I've been here. That was in 1983. And
I remember then in 1988, you spent your year of chasing racing glory, and spent a year.
I worked on a cup team for a year in Charlotte, and it was a good experience. But I had just gotten married, and she was from Richmond, and didn't know anybody there, and it got to be. It wasn't the fun I thought it was going to be, and I had more fun going around short tracks, weekly Saturday night stuff.
The quick thing is, when you went down there, quite a few of you, Jimmy Smith, and I can't remember Kevin. Also, I'm drawing a blank on Kevin's last name, and Timothy. Yeah, and Kevin. All of y'all went down for the start of Wickham Racing. You worked with rookie driver who was Rookie of the Year, by the end of the year, Kenny Bouchard, and about mid-season, you left that team to go, and then you said, and at Wickham, including the crew chief, y'all had, what, 7 guys? 6 or 7, and then you went to work for...
7 full-time people running the whole schedule.
Right, 7 full-time people, maintaining the cars, running full schedule, and you left that to go to work for DK Ulrich, who had a rookie driving for him, some guy named Ernie Irvin.
Ain't never heard of him.
And y'all had, what, 3 full-time people at that team, and the rest were volunteers or
3
part-time?
full-time people there running all the races.
And I look at, we look at what's going on today, and all I can think is I like to have the money, excuse my language, that these guys piss away to run a short track team with.
Yeah. Yeah, there's late model stock cars that got a bigger budget than we had running Cup back then.
Hey Brett, got somebody online, they got a question for you. When it comes to setting up a dirt car or an asphalt car, which one's harder for you? And then a follow-up is to explain the 5th coil in a dirt car.
Well, I think it's harder to tune in an asphalt car because there seems to be there's just one group where everybody wants to run, and if the car is off a little bit, it's hard to make up for it. On the dirt, if the car is off a little bit, you can change your line. Most tracks got 2, 3, 4 grooves. You can drive the car a little different and make it do what you want. And the 5th coil is just the traction device. When the rear wraps up, it pushes up in the middle of the car and transfers weight to the rear wheels to give it more drive. We don't, on the modifieds, we really don't run a 5th coil on there. We run a pull bar on the top that's got top of the rear. It's got a spring on it. It pretty much does the same thing.
Cool.
And the other thing that you got to run, and I'll assume, I'll ask you, because I don't know, I haven't seen the modifieds on, at least in this area, the type modifieds on asphalt. I assume they're still on 8-inch tires. But when you've got a car, what do y'all weigh? 2,300 as an average on dirt?
Yeah, most places the rules are 2,400 or 2,450.
And what do you guys speculate the horsepower is on the, let's say with a VMS, the 383 rules, which is really a good low budget type motor?
The motor I was running with the carburetor, we had to run the 750 carburetor. I was probably 620, 630 horsepower.
And you're trying to put that to the ground with an 8-inch tread width, and if I recall right, they're on 10-inch wide wheels, correct?
No, 8-inch wheels.
The 8-inch
wheels and 8-inch tires.
And you're trying to hook that up on dirt, that much horsepower. And the last I knew, a late model stock car was about 385, 390 horsepower downhill with the tailwind.
Right. Well,
unless it's cheating.
When I go to a lot of these other tracks, they're 725, 750 horsepower. So I'm down a little bit on compared to some of them, but most of the time, if I get into feature and the track slicks off good, I can hold my own.
I got ready to say, I remember you hurting somebody's feelings from West Virginia up east side one night. Track slicked up and you just coming along motoring on by them.
Yeah, we were running steel heads and everything then, and the guys from over there were kind of shocked.
I don't know.
Drove around a couple of them on the outside. That was the year we ran so good and finished second in the AMRA points. Did a lot of traveling over that way too, and they were surprised that we were coming over there and could run so good with the steelhead 383.
It just amazes me that some of the people think you've got to have so much horsepower. The bigger motors like you see in the AMRA, the UMP, IMCA, and I mean, what I'm looking forward to this year is Steve Sumlin getting his Southeastern Modified Series up and running. And as well as Steve has promoted the Modifieds when he was with County Line, and then helping last year with the guys out of Ohio and West Virginia. All of a sudden, I'm drawing a blank on Michael's last name, Gibson. When he's helping them with that series, I think once Steve gets his up and running, it'll be a great addition for dirt modified drivers along the eastern seaboard.
Yeah, it should be. They're paying pretty good money, and the tracks are not too far apart. It gives the guys Southeast a little bit, chances to run for a little bit more money. The modified, it's changed a lot in the last 5 or 6 years, just because of the fact that the shocks and stuff have gotten so good. It used to be you run in the corner and let off the gas and set the car and then get back on it and go again. But now the shocks are so good, the traction is so good. It seems like everywhere we go, from quarter miles to half miles, you run pretty much wide open all the way around. So the motor helps you then when you can do that. You know, if you got to go in a corner and let off the gas and then get back on it, the guys with the big motors, it's easier for them to spin the tires when they have to do that. And the guys with a little less horsepower, it's easier to drive when it was slick. So that was a little bit of the advantage I had then. But now the shocks and everything are so good, pretty much everywhere you go, you're just about wide open all the way around.
And that's the hard thing for some people to conceive if they're from the asphalt world, is running on the mat around, let's say, county line, a big 3rd mile racetrack. I say big 3rd mile. They got it listed as 3/8, but I've never seen. I can't say that I've seen that there, unless they're measuring around the outside wall itself.
Yeah, it's pretty tight. It's pretty fast, and it races fast. It seems like you're going faster there than a lot of the half-mile tracks I've been on.
You were talking about last year, y'all went to Hagerstown for the first time. Now Hagerstown is a big half mile. How fast do you think y'all were screaming down the back straightaway, say going into 3 when you passed the inside photo tower? I mean, y'all had to be just hauling the mail.
Yeah, it was pretty fast, but I think county line seems like it's the fastest of anywhere we go. It's you can sense the speed because it's so tight and so small, and with the wall all the way around it, and it's pretty narrow. The groove is pretty narrow. Hagerstown, I would say we probably were running 110, 15 at the end of the straightaways. It got pretty slick that night, so you really kind of had to be easy getting through the corners, but it helps some of the lower horsepower motors when it gets like that.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the big thing, because unless there's a situation, I mean when you said the shocks have made it so some of the bigger horsepower cars can actually spin the wheels and help. That is something, I mean, a lot of people don't realize there are times where wheel spin in dirt can be advantageous, where in asphalt you spinning the wheels, you're in trouble, period.
Yeah, if you're spinning the wheels on asphalt, you're not going anywhere.
Might as well be.
Well, when you were running asphalt, I mean, you had success. You won at Richmond on the 3/4 mile, and you won damn near everywhere I ever seen you running asphalt. What would you consider was your favorite asphalt track, and what do you consider your favorite dirt track?
The asphalt track's probably Orange County and Rougemont, North Carolina. I like that track because it had a couple grooves you could run, and they had a deal set up where if you were fast qualifier and went to the back, you would get a bonus. And we tried it down there a couple times because it was easier to pass down there. The track groove was wide, and they started 30 modifieds down there one night. And I didn't get the bonus, but it was fun coming from that far back in 50 laps to be in contention anyway.
Yeah, I remember you hurting somebody's feelings down there one night.
The dirt cars, I probably like Beckley Motor Speedway the best. I don't know what their situation is over there this year for running, but I like that track. The only thing wrong with it was about 2.5 hours too far from home.
I hear you. They're definitely and at night when it's time to come home from there, it's a long haul.
You ever been to Fayetteville?
Yeah, Fayetteville. I have never had a whole lot of luck at Fayetteville. Every time I've been down there, it seems like they've had a ton of rain and it's gotten rough. And I've only run the modified there maybe 4 or 5 times. I ran a 360 sprint car there one time, and that will get your attention.
As tight as the corners are at Fayetteville, I imagine you carrying a lot of speed at the end of the straightaway in a 360. And you're hoping that wing's going to plant you in the corner.
Yeah, you're hoping so.
That was the hardest thing for me to get used to in a sprint car type thing. is it driving into the corner till it breaks loose for the wing to do its job. It was against everything I had ever learned up to that point, which was smooth, finesse, set the car, and it took a long time to learn to trust the wing will hold you.
Yeah, it did. I raced a 305 better part of a year, I guess, and then I had an opportunity to drive this one went down there with a 360 in it, and it was a different animal, that was for sure.
How old are you getting up to be now? You're at the half-century mark, aren't you?
Oh yeah, little past. I just turned 53 in October.
Okay, I was just wondering, how long do you plan on, do you want to continue to race?
Well, it's kind of getting to the point now where I'm kind of winding on down. I don't know how much more, maybe another year or two. I've been at racetracks every weekend for the last 35 years. And, the guys I had helping me back when we were running really hard, they've all gone on and found other things to do. A lot of times it's just me and my wife go. Races that are close here around, my father-in-law will go some, but he's getting where he can't go that much either, and it's just getting. I'll still always go to the races. I like to be around the people, but it's just so much work and trying to run out of your pocket all the time, and I enjoy going to the races. I don't enjoy all the work as much anymore, especially working on everybody else's cars all day. And it gets to be 7 o'clock at night, and I really don't have the drive to work on my own like I used to. So,
I understand. I understand that. I mean, the whole thing. I mean, I've been around racing now for this will be my 55th year. Going as a spectator, involved, working on them, and last year was a different year for me. I went to County Line in the spring and went to Potomac twice, one night to flag, one night to announce. And other than going to Pennsylvania on an off weekend with Roy Hendrick and a bunch of other people we know, and I'm used to every weekend, if I'm off, I'm going to racetrack. We rain out, well, is there somewhere within 3 hours I can go to a racetrack? I mean, I've done insane stuff. Re-rained out and jump in the car and drive 8 hours to go to Atomic Motor Speedway in Oak Ridge, Tennessee to see a show and be gone 2 days. And now it's like I'm finding I don't need to be at a racetrack every week, and that's probably the hardest thing for me to get used to is I don't miss it as much as I used to, where I felt like I had to be at a track somewhere every week.
yeah, well, I think I still like to go to the racetrack every weekend, and but just the driving part. It used to be the first races in the spring, I was going to be there and was not going to miss it, and I was not going to miss one all season. But now it's gotten to the point where if I get there with the car, fine. If I don't, that's fine too. I can just go and watch.
I can remember a lot of times back when you was doing the asphalt stuff, before we had the modifieds in this area running on dirt. You had an off week where you wasn't racing. Well, Bret was going Winchester, Hagerstown. You were going somewhere to a dirt track. Very seldom did you on an off week go to an asphalt track to watch racing. You were headed to a dirt track.
I grew up around the dirt racing, and I've always loved it. And it seems to be more exciting to me. Just at the time when I moved out here, there wasn't a whole lot of dirt racing in this area, and there were no modifieds in this area. So, and then when they started them, they pretty much primarily just stayed on the asphalt. So that's what I got involved in. And that was in '92, and we pretty much primarily just raced asphalt until about 2000, 2001, and then started running on dirt.
Let me, we had somebody send in a question. Now, you've driven 305 sprints, 360 sprints, the IMCA type modifieds. You have run dirt late models at Eastside and a few other places. What has been the most fun race car for you to drive, including what you've done on asphalt?
I would say the most fun is the IMCA type modified on dirt. I ran a little bit of late model stock cars on pavement 3 or 4 times, I guess, but that never really thrilled me. I started racing in the modified, and they had more horsepower than the late model stocks, and the late model stocks just felt like you were running with a stricter plate all the time, and the cars were so much heavier, and I never really did like it. I like the asphalt modified better than the asphalt late models, but probably my favorite has been the modifieds on dirt.
I mean, that's a situation, like I said earlier, if the car's off a little on dirt, you, the driver, can change your lines, you know, where how you run, how hard in the corner, or drive in easier and off the corner. I mean, you can alter the line, how you drive in the car, and still be competitive. Where on asphalt, for the most part, everybody's running right around the hub, and unless they knock somebody out the way or they slip out the way, there ain't a whole hell of a lot of passing going on anymore.
No, not really, and usually everybody's, especially on the east, they all want to qualify time trials and start with the fast guys in front, and that even makes it worse. You know?
And that's not conducive to make for a race.
Just invert the whole field.
When I go to Iowa, they invert them by their points in the heat races. So the new high point average guys start in the back of the heats, and then the guy with the best average, he starts no better than 12th in the feature.
That was one thing I liked.
They have, people say, well, that tears up a lot of cars, and it doesn't. If you know the situation what you're racing in, and
It teaches you to race.
All I got to get to is 4th place, and I'm qualified, and I'm going to be inverted again anyway. You don't run over people to get to that point, and I've seen guys come from the 6th row and win the features out there, and I've seen guys that might not have the funding and everything that start up on the front row, and if the track is right and everything, the situations that work out right, they can win the feature. And
Well,
there's a lot of more different people winning features out there.
Well, you got to remember a lot when Larry Phillips was winning some of the NASCAR regional deals and nationals. There was people around that, asphalt. Well, they only run 25 laps, but they don't realize that a lot of these places, if you win this week, you're starting no better than 8th, 10th, or even 12th the following week, because they don't want the same guy winning every week. And so they were having to drive from that far back in a 25 lap feature, which made for a lot better racing. But I don't know. I mean, I remember in Southside, and it was that way up through the early 80s back when mid 80s when I met you. Your point guys that were tops of the points started in the back of the heat, unless it was somebody's first time there or they had missed a few weeks, then they went even behind those guys. You never had the fast guys starting up front, and then you did, they were doing the redraw. There were drivers that whined about it, but Charlie Ford and Curtis Markham said it taught them, and Elton Sawyer the same thing. You knew what the rules were when you come in the gate, and it made them better race drivers. Yeah,
a lot of people can drive fast, but they can't pass anybody driving fast. They get out there, somebody's a good qualifier, get up front, and if they run all season and never have to pass anybody, that doesn't really make them any better. They can get out there and drive by themselves fast.
Yeah, one of the people watching, they were just talking about he just won a championship at Ace from learning that way.
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, you can't, I don't know, you cannot, and I'll give Wayne White his due on this. He approached NASCAR some years back and asked them on short tracks, at least in the Mid-Atlantic area, to mandate either an inversion or redraw or something, except for special events, to take the heat off the promoters, because as well as I do, there were guys back in, they'd start whining and complaining, well, if you're going to do that, I'm going to go over here and race, and this, that, and the other, and the promoter had to have cars to put people in the stands.
Oh, yeah.
And you still had people that quit coming to races because they got tired of seeing follow the leader and the same 2 guys win all the time.
Yeah, well, that's one good thing about IMCA racing, is because they mandate what the starting lineup procedure is going to be, and it's the same from Iowa to California. Everybody knows what the deal is. I think they give them each track like 2 nights where they don't have to do that. They can line the fast guys up front or however they want to do it. But all their weekly races, other than maybe 1 or 2 during the season, are lined up with the top 12 guys that qualifiers for the feature inverted by their average point. And it makes for good racing.
Well, that's the whole thing. You know, you're not out there to learn, you know, necessarily just to run fast times. I mean, I don't, you know, that's one of the things, like on a Sunday afternoon, and you flip on the TV, you just see a guy out there running, and then you see a guy run them down, then they can't pass because of aerodynamics or whatever. I like to see such circumstances where the people have got to pass, have got to do something. I mean, you look at the money they've got in super late models and stuff, at least it's, you know, in most cases, there's qualifying, and with the exception of 1 series, for the most case, you're going to see some kind of inversion for the heat races that follow.
Right.
I think there's only 1 series out there right now that will, you know, if you're the fast qualifier, they're going to put you up front in your heat race. They're not going to, well, rather than invert the top 4 before the heat race.
Right.
And, you know, to me, the inversion doesn't hurt. You know, you're there to put on a show. Yes, it's a sport, but it's still entertainment, and you're asking people to spend money, and they want to be entertained. They don't want to come up, unless it's their favorite driver who's stinking to show up week in and week out. You know, they don't want to come watch one person just lead every lap week in and week out, because that's not entertainment.
Right.
Hey, Bret. And another question online. Progressive banking. What are your thoughts on that on the short tracks?
I think it makes for better racing. I think a lot of the tracks in the Midwest, especially the dirt tracks, they grade them that way. They're flat on the bottom, and the banking is up near the outside is more. And a lot of times they grade a little lip around the top, so there's no walls at most of them, except for down the front straightaway. So there's guys running with the right rear tire right up on the lip of the track, and there's guys running right around the bottom on the tires. And it seems to make for better racing. So a lot of the asphalt tracks have been on, and it's just a standard straight up banking. Everybody runs right around the bottom, and that's pretty much the groove. I have noticed some of the tracks on the East Coast, about 2/3 of the track up the track will be straight bank, but then the top third of the track it flattens off at the top, so you can't use that top of the track. I think if they graded them with more progressive banking in them, they would have better shows.
Exactly, the bottom, at least bottom third of the track, enough banking just to let the water run off, and then when you get the middle, you bank, you know, you kick it in about 3 or 4 more degrees, and then when you get the outside, kick it even more. You can make multiple groove racing, and
some of the tracks up there they flatten off at the top, and you
I don't understand that shelf either.
And run. Some of them I think need to work on the grading a little bit.
One of the tracks we were talking about earlier, I swear, at the top, you got almost half the top of their track that is, like you say, it's got a shelf up there, and don't understand it because the cars come in from out of the infield, so there's no logic of that being there. It's not like you're coming in from an outside pit area and blending in. And
right. Well, I know Marshalltown, Iowa, you come on the track in turn 4, and when you come up the bank and come onto the track, you feel like you're falling over a cliff. It's so steep, but and that's one of the places where I've been where it's flat on the bottom, and they can run 5 and 6 wide because they use the whole track. I don't think I've ever seen a bad race there.
You ever been out to Lake Erie Speedway?
No, never been there. I haven't been to too many up in western Pennsylvania, western New York.
One of the people out here is saying that was a really, really good progressive banking on that track. So you might, if you get a chance to, try to go up there and take a shot at it.
Yeah, maybe someday.
Well, that's the biggest thing is you've got to have a track where you can get up and race on. I know last year I was so happy the second night of our Fast Track World Championship. There were guys 3 and 4 wide racing, and I saw pictures the following week that people posted on Facebook. They were 5 wide. And I'm going, oh, you know, it's just phenomenal racing. And the great thing...
It was too wet the first night, and it was about perfect the second night.
I'll tell you, I think the second night, it couldn't have been any better than what it was. I could think of 1 or 2 things that could have possibly made it a little better. But as a whole, compared to the first night where I was looking for a hole to crawl into, I didn't even want to be at the racetrack after the first night. It just, I was able to go home after a very stressed out week getting ready, and then Friday night ready. I don't even want to go in the pit area. At the end of the night, I just want to get the hell out of there and go home. And at that point, when the end of the night comes Saturday, it was like somebody had shot me full of adrenaline, and I was all ready to go again. It was that exciting to watch, even as an employee who just wanted that checkered flag to fall, knowing that was the last race of the year and the season was over.
Well, Bret, I'll tell you what, originally we were going to shoot for 15 minutes. I think we've got about 45 with you already.
I'm sorry I talked for too long.
Oh, it's no big deal. Wait till you see some of our shows where we run about 3 hours.
I don't know. He's about got me past my bedtime. I have no idea what time it is.
Anyway, go ahead and give a shout out to your sponsors. Somebody else said, what do you think about if they were taking Bristol and make it dirt again?
Well, I didn't go see that race. My brother went down and watched it, and he said it was pretty good. So I think if they did it again, I'd have to at least go down there and watch them. But I really don't have a whole lot of sponsors. LA Engineering does my engines for me, and Thurston Spring Services helped me out. He's helped me out since I started racing, and I get some product sponsors, a little bit of stuff from Carolina Racing Supply and Performance Bodies and Left-Hander Chassis. I'm a dealer for all those people.
And yes, you can shamelessly...
Joe Cox over in Beckley, J&J Fabrication. He's the one who let me run his car this past year, so I got to give him a shout out too.
Cool. All right, we'll get you back on here again, Bret. Sound good to you?
Okay, that sounds good.
Bret, look forward to seeing you in a few months.
All right, yeah, we'll be there.
All right, buddy. Thank you, man.
Have a happy New Year.
Okay, you too.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
So what you got going on at Virginia Motor Speedway coming up? Anything?
The opening night, like I say, is Aaron's King of Commonwealth, $20,000 to win for the Ultimate Super Late Model Series. And we'll start into our regular program. We run a limited schedule. We have a few weeks off every month. And sometimes Mother Nature will add to that. We'll start that on the 16th. Our 4 weekly divisions are the Victory Lap Pro Late Models, the Budweiser Modifieds like Bret drives. Then we have the Truckin' Thunder Sportsman Series, which is basically an asphalt late model, except the car is lighter and got more horsepower. We got guys out there running and winning in that division with 20-year-old late model chassis, asphalt late model chassis. Make a couple of changes to it and then go to town. And then we've got our Collision 1 Limited Stocks, which is our street stock division. And those guys, last race of the night, these guys will be, there's nothing to see 6 to 8 cars constantly swapping positions throughout the whole race in that division.
Shoot, my old late model might even be out there under somebody's chassis.
I will tell you what, I've got one sitting there chassis. It's sitting on the grounds. We were going to make a show car out of it, and then all of a sudden stumbled up on something else. It was actually a 1986 Savakis late model stock car owned by Bobby Moon out of Lynchburg that Mark Martin won a late model stock race in Martinsville in. And that chassis is sitting at the racetrack now. I mean, as soon as the boy said, well, the guy said Mark Martin won a race at Martinsville, I saw that was an 86 Savakis car that Bobby Moon, it was Bobby Moon's car. But that was late model stock cars, I'd say from their inception, and it changes up probably till about the mid 1990s. late 1990s, 1998, was really some good racing. By the time you really got in the late 1990s, it was becoming, like Bret said, you know, there's guys running late model stocks on budgets today that we were running cup cars budgets with in the 80s and the 70s.
Oh yeah.
And then some. I know one particular person, what he spent on his sons one year was, I don't know, insane money. And like I say, when I hear people say they're out there renting cars to young drivers, these fathers are paying these rental fees, and that includes if you blow the motor up, you wreck the car,
Crash clause, all that.
all that stuff claused in contracts. It's insanity. It is not a deal where the average racer's building his car, buying a car, maintaining it, learning as he's progressing, and turning somebody's eye and getting a ride. I mean, Denny Hamlin, God bless him, and I'm not, like I said, I've known him since he was a little kid running go-karts at Amelia Motor Raceway. He goes down, driving for Jim Dean, and they're going to sell some cars to Joe Gibbs Racing for driver development, and he's down there showing the equipment and driving it, and J.D. Gibbs saw how well he was getting around and the times he was making versus the others.
Maybe.
And I mean, he got a shot. I mean, and Keselowski, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is what really helped him get where he was, giving him a shot. You just don't see that much of that anymore. I mean, and I'm not talking about the older guys, I'm talking about the younger guys coming up. You look at the younger ones coming up today. I mean, Jeff Gordon, if you want to see Jeff Gordon back in his day, I have a friend of mine that owns Genesis Shocks, Mike Farr, down in Georgia. He got Jeff Gordon the only driving job he was ever fired from. This sprint car owner said, well, Mike, who would you put in the car if you owned it? You know, that Gordon kid's pretty good. And it was like wrecked it 4 out of the first 5 times out, and they fired you, boy. But it's that is just one of the things. I mean, he laughs about it now, but I mean, Jeff Gordon, if I watched him in Thursday Night Thunder in midget cars at IRP, Indianapolis Raceway Park, on ESPN back in the day. And a friend of mine who was a Mark Martin diehard fan when Mark was driving Bill Davis's Carolina Fords, a dealer's Busch Grand National car. When Jeff replaced Mark in that car, the boy I work with, he's going, who in the hell is Jeff Gordon? I said, you watch in a few years, you're going to see who Jeff Gordon is. Same with Tony Stewart. Tony's open wheel driving and stuff.
Oh yeah. You about ready to?
I'm ready to go
rock
eat.
and roll. All right. Let me get to where I gotta
Past my bedtime, but I appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate the fans. I'm sorry if I bash on some of the asphalt stuff, but if you live near a dirt track, check, see how far you've got to go to one, and go out and visit your local dirt track or one in the region. Just go out and see a couple shows. Take you some eye protection, a pair of amber vision glasses, cap for your head. Go out and have some fun.
There you go. All right, everybody. We're going to catch everybody on next week again. Thank you there, Real Obi. We had a good time talking dirt tonight, as always. Next time I get you in, I have to get some of the bigger guys out here.
Well, the thing is, you can go to dirt, as we used to say on the radio show when we had Dirt Nation. Come over to the dark side.
There you go. All right, we'll catch everybody next week on Let's Talk Racing. See ya, and Happy New Year. Hello, my name is Roger Brehm. With the help of Chrissy and Michelle, I hope to educate you in the cruelty of animals that are all across this country in the animal shelters. As you can see, Lucky here was not too lucky, just recently put to sleep before anybody could adopt it. The animals can be cats, dogs, old ones, even young ones like you see here. We hope to give voices to these poor, voiceless creatures. Hopefully, in the next weeks ahead and months, we will be bringing shows to you to educate you with what is going on across the country, different animal shelters, those that you may want to visit, those you may not want to visit. But please, our end result is to have these animals adopted before they're put to sleep. Some of these places only give you a day of notice before they put to sleep. So help us to help them. Visit the website that you see on your screen, FridoAnimalRescue.org. Thank you.